Chapter 8. A Little Girl in Eden. With modesty, Elizabeth delivers the pressed leaves with a subdued pride. Dr. Manning commands his assistants to look at them immediately, and the engineers are satisfied with the momentary peace between departments. The drill is nearly assembled, and the captain begins voicing the idea of multiple expeditions at once. In light of the good news, Elizabeth and Julius take a moment away from their work for the night. Over a game of pool, the pair discuss possible destinations for their next expedition. When the game is finished, they take a seat on the couch with a bottle of wine. Here, they turn the attention of their conversation to their past lives on Zion. Julius asks more than he tells, and his answers deflect into questions about her life. All he shares is a lack of familiarity with New Memphis today. The ground has long forgotten the soles of his boots. Yet the concrete grid remains the same in his head, as if the rubble and ruin lay there just days ago. They still exist somewhere to him, just empty. The living left, and those who lay with idle eyelids never removed their faces from the pavement. He imagines they're still there, just withered, desolate, dry, and dead. A boneyard he never wishes to visit. Elizabeth feels sorry for pressing him, and places her glass on the coffee table before her. Other than a severe fear of the dark, she laughs. I have nothing to complain about. I've had it easy. His chest rises, then falls in a sigh. No one has a perfect life. She stares as if to see one hurtful memory before her, a discomfort large enough to conduct her decisions in life. What is it? He asks. Half expecting him to guess, she takes a moment. Mom and Dad separating? I never thought about it until I got on the ship. He waits for her to think and add something. He knows if she chooses the right words, it will help her feel understood. She remembers arguments, but no words except inconsiderate, manipulate, and liar. Her adult mind now watches her parents very differently. They were both inconsiderate. They were both liars. And they both tried to win the favor of their children. A selfish battle of manipulation on young, impressionable minds. All they really cared for was their own legacy. To let their influence live on through the young and malleable children. She remembers one night, in the front they tried to put up. It wasn't long after that the news would surface. The Lexington State Fair of 508, she tells Julius. People call it Carnival. As she recollects, she was only 9 back then, and her father had never paid so much attention to her in her life. Her brother Kyle would claim to never remember how loved he was that night, but Elizabeth can't forget her mother's tension, how she laughed and smiled in a nearly manic way. Something bothers Elizabeth about her decided view of her parents, and this night set that feeling in stone. They had been taken from one attraction to another, adorned with stuffed animals and face paint, and when the black curtains were let down for the night, the fireworks cracked just shy of the glass barrier. We were sitting and eating Jell-O with whipped cream. I looked at Kyle, and back at my parents. For a fraction of a second, before they noticed I was looking, I could swear they were smiling at each other. Their faces were backing away from one another, like they'd just kissed. I'd never seen them kiss. So I looked away, but it was too late. Dad rubbed my head, and the attention was back on us kids. I didn't want them to stop being like that. I wanted things to be that way forever. The 4 of us together, and happy. To confess this breaks her heart. That one moment contradicts everything before and after. She wipes a tear from her eye. I always ask myself, why that couldn't be my family? Why they insisted on letting that go? Why nobody cared as much as I did? Elizabeth bites her bottom lip in anger, and tears subside into a cold face. My brother drank himself to death. My father remarried with a new son, and the funeral was just an obligation to him. Meanwhile, My mother wallows in her self-pity. Julius's hand finds its way to hers, but she pulls it away. She looks at him with a soft regret. Sorry. Julius backs away, but keeps attentive eye contact with her. The day after the fair, Mom moved out. They constructed a memory to make up for what we'd miss. A sick way to pull the rug out from right under us. Julius keeps silent, defeated in finding something to say. After long, he manages to uncover a few words. If it makes you feel any better, I'm here to listen, he says. With that, she falls into his shoulder and lets out the years of pent-up words. With time, her sobs fall away into a brief gasp that comes in twos. Frequently, then less, and finally, no more. A weight has left her by the time she is sniffling, at which moment she notices Julius's fingers in her hair. She backs away from his support and looks where her head once was. Oh God, I made you a mess. He laughs. Don't worry about it, that's what I'm here for. With a quick brush of his hand, he straightens out the wrinkles of his shirt. She tries to aid him, but he holds her hand before it meets him. Don't worry about it. Just let me get this one thing, she says. She wipes away as much mascara as she can. He watches as she deliberately stares at the fading stain. Anytime you need me, I'm here. She looks at him for a moment, but not long. With a last brush of his shoulder, she backs away and stands. You want another glass of wine? He puts his hand up in a polite decline. No, thank you. She begins walking away, but he calls to her again. Hey, hold on. She waits, standing at the edge of the couch. Julius begins talking with hesitance. You shouldn't drink. You drink too much. She nods and looks down at her feet. Besides, you're more fun when you're sober. She looks up with a smile. I don't know, I think I'm a pretty fun drunk. He laughs. Yeah, but that's for a slumber party. This is a onesie-wearing, no selfies, hair up in a bun, no makeup sleepover. She laughs again. Her cheeks hide glassy pupils behind her eyelids. He continues. I want to pull an all-nighter talking with you. Fine, but I'm going to get some tea. He smiles. Deal. With a cup of tea each, they sit back on the couch. They talk all night about her childhood split between her father's place in Eden and her mother's quiet suburban community, a town called Elysian Grove. In wealthy neighborhoods back home, there are fiber optic stars projected on the dome above. Elysian Grove had a moon projected with phases. The curtains that fall at night serve two purposes for every community on Zion: to protect from X-ray bursts, and to block out the ever-setting Proxima Centauri, the star which rests eternally on the southern horizon. In middle school, her and her friends would play manhunt under the stars. Her father's place was quiet for the city. Less children in the neighborhood, but it was the house where she spent the first 9 years of her life. Her mother had custody, but the time at her father's felt more like home. His private garden would host parties and events. Wheat trees, grass vines, raspberry bushes, and all the furnishings of a proper oasis. The garden was a nice place to sunbathe when her father played piano through the open windows, and this is when she would sneak off with her preteen summertime boyfriend. Most friends she had, sadly, were superficial. None were truly close to her like Julius. No other friendship could stand the test of time on this ship together. From the moment they were introduced in a meeting as partners, the two of them made an effort to know one another. The bond grew stronger over time, and gradually grew into the friendship of the ages. Elizabeth's first impression of Julius was a sly insult toward Dr. Manning. Following a judgmental remark on Elizabeth's age, Julius played dumb in a way that was clever. The backhanded comment was about politics playing part in the crew's selection for the mission. Julius looked at him long and hard. You think so? I had a feeling we weren't picked for our intellect, but I didn't think it was political in any way. Dr. Lawrence smiled uncontrollably and fought the grin with all her might. Julius then looked away with half a smile and a wink. She still smiles from time to time when she thinks about it. It's because his friend didn't make the cut, he told her. With time, they would share details of their past. Long talks at night led to regular routines, and now they spend every free hour together. You know, your parents being apart, that could just be a part of God's plan, Julius says. Elizabeth laughs. I don't even believe in a plan. I do, he adds. She looks in his eyes and recalls their miracle meeting. She sighs and places her tea down. What God would make a world like this, she asks. The one who gives you what you need, and not what you want. That doesn't make sense, she laughs. What if you learned something from your parents? I learned how not to act. I rest my case. He raises his hands and expects a laugh. She slightly smiles, but shakes her head. Not good enough, she says. He leans in closer with tense brows. For my own curiosity, tell me, what makes you doubt? She thinks a while and nods when she comes to an answer. You said a higher power brought us here. I did. She nods again. I love you, Jules. But what higher purpose is there to this friendship? Julius shrugs. Everything happens for a reason. I don't have the answer to that right now. She turns her head to face him. If you can answer that by the time we make it to Zion, you win. Deal. He thrusts his hand forward, and Elizabeth meets his hand with hers in agreement. Julius grins. Is there money on this bet? She laughs. You get bragging rights. Fine, he says. That'll do. They laugh together, with warmth and security.